Okay, now we're going to read the second half of The Fox and the Hound. And if you remember right, when we stopped, Todd was in a lot of trouble. Amos Slade was mad, and the dogs were mad, and one of them was hurt, and things were not looking good. Widow Tweed knew that Todd would be in danger as long as he stayed on the farm. She had to do something to protect him. Tomorrow, she said to Todd, I'll take you to the game preserve. That's a special place where hunting and trapping aren't allowed. You'll be safe there. Early next morning, they started off in the car. I'll miss you, Todd, said Widow Tweed sadly. I'll miss you very much. At first, Todd was lonely and unhappy in the huge game preserve, but soon Big Mama came to visit him, and he began to make friends. He met an old badger and a prickly porcupine, and he met a lovely female fox named Pixie. It's not bad here, Todd decided. I miss Copper and Widow Tweed, but I do like Pixie, and at last I'm safe from Amos Slade. There they are, headed out in the car. They get there, and there is Pixie, and she's a very pretty fox. But the grumpy hunter hadn't forgotten Todd. Chief's leg was still bandaged up, and Amos wanted revenge. Early one morning he whistled for Copper, started his truck, and drove off to the game preserve. Hunting isn't allowed there, he mumbled, but we won't really do any hunting except to get us a certain no-good little fox. Copper growled in agreement. Copper's gotten to be not a very good friend. Amos soon found Todd's tracks in the woods. On a narrow path through the trees, he set some traps and covered them with leaves. Now, he whispered to Copper, we'll let that critter walk right into our hands. See, there's old Chief. He's all laid up with the broken leg. Amos looks mad, and there's Amos and Copper, and they're putting out traps with sharp um, blades on them that'll trap the legs of poor little Todd. Before long, Todd came trotting along with Vixie. When they got to the path, Vixie stopped short. What's wrong? Todd asked. Let's go back, Vixie said. It's too quiet here. All the birds and animals have gone away. This path isn't safe, Todd. But Todd wouldn't listen. He started off alone. Suddenly, clang! He leaped back just in time. Amos's traps banged shut all around him. Run, Vixie, Todd cried. The frightened foxes raced through the woods. Amos and Copper followed close behind them. Todd and Vixie dove into a burrow, then darted out the other side. They scrambled up a rocky hill near a rushing river. The chase went on and on. Copper kept right on the fox's trail, leading Amos closer and closer. Suddenly, clang! One of Amos's own traps clamped shut on the hunter's leather. There they are, just taking their walk, and there's where the trap almost gets Todd. And there's Copper and Amos chasing them, and then there's Amos getting his boots stuck in his own trap. Growl! A grizzly bear came crashing through the bushes, and he headed straight for Amos Slade. The huge bear swiped at Amos, knocking the gun from his hand. With his foot caught in the trap, Amos was helpless. Copper rushed to his side. Growling and snarling, the brave dog charged at the bear. The bear slapped Copper aside. Copper got up and charged again. Again, the huge grizzly flung him to the ground. Now the bear was closing in. He reared on his hind legs and raised his powerful paws. Copper shut his eyes. I'm done for, he thought. There's the bear after Amos. There it is after it's knocked Todd down and hurt him. Suddenly, something small and furry flashed through the air. It landed on the grizzly's head and hung on tightly. It was Todd. He had been watching the fight from a ledge. He hadn't forgotten about the trouble on the bridge. He knew that Copper blamed him for what had happened, but Todd didn't care. All that mattered now was that Copper had been his friend, and his friend was in danger. With an angry roar, the bear lunged and whirled, trying to shake Todd loose. Time and again, Todd crashed to the ground. Time and again, he got up and leaped at the bear. From a very high rock, Vixie watched the battle. Todd looked nearly exhausted, but he kept fighting. There he is, biting the bear's head. There's Vixie watching from way up high. Nearby was the river, where a waterfall rushed and tumbled onto jagged rocks below. Lying across the waterfall, almost like a bridge, was an old fallen tree. With a sweep of his paw, the grizzly flung Todd out onto the tree trunk. Todd's head was spinning. He gasped for breath and clung to the wobbly tree. Growling, the bear lumbered out to finish the little fox, but he was too heavy for the old tree trunk. With a loud crack, it split in two. There's the bear throwing Todd toward that log, and then there's the log breaking when the bear tries to get down. Down went Todd and the bear, over the waterfall and into the rushing, churning water. The huge bear was swept away in the swift current. But where was Todd? Vixie ran to the river's edge to look for him. Todd, she cried, where are you? At last Todd came up to the surface. He climbed slowly out of the water, scratched and bruised. Amos had finally managed to pull his foot out of the trap. As he saw Todd coming out of the river, he reached for his gun. At last, I've got him, the hunter snarled. He raised his gun and pointed it at Todd. There's the bear getting swept away, and there's Vixie looking for Todd, and there's poor Todd, half drowned, coming out of the water. And there's Amos about to shoot Todd. Now it was Copper's turn to help his friend. He came forward and stood between Amos and Todd. Get out of the way, Copper, said Amos, but Copper refused to budge. He looked up at his master and growled. Don't you hurt my friend, he seemed to say. He was very brave. He saved us both from the grizzly bear. The hunter lowered his gun. He stared at his faithful hound guarding the fox. For the first time, Amos understood the deep friendship between the two animals. Come on, Copper, he said gruffly. Come on, boy. Let's go home. There's Copper standing to where Amos can't shoot Todd. There's Copper and Amos deciding to just leave. With Copper sitting beside him, Amos drove his truck down the road and away from the game preserve. Todd and Vixie watched them from a hill. Copper looked up at Todd as the truck drove off. Todd looked down at Copper. They both knew something important now. They knew that they would always be special friends. Very special friends, Todd whispered. Forever. There they go off in their truck, and there they are watching. The end.